There were quite a few stages to the production of the book. I mean, when you manhandle it, it's really, really heavy because the basis of it is a welded metal armature. Just physically manhandling these models into place on set and getting them ready to animate with was physically demanding as well.
We started it quite dark and moody to reflect the world of beer, I guess, before Pilsner Urquell actually came out. So we've got the big bolts of lightning, the black rain falling down on the roof.
Everything has to be hand wrought, everything is made from scratch, everything had to reflect a particular handmade quality.
This is one of the horse and cart replacements for the town. I mean, you only actually see this for a tiny fraction of time, but there's over 50 of these sort of replacements to actually animate the shot. So each replacement's got a slightly different position of the horse's hooves and the wheel of the cart. It's put together with a wire armature just to hold it in position. I mean, one of the things that we wanted to try and do, just to kind of heighten the texture of the paper, it was just a very subtle movement of the plane of the horse and cart so that the light caught it in a slightly different way. So it's often described in animation as boiling, when you just see a slight difference frame by frame so you can tell it's animation.
Once the cobbles peel back, we basically tore open a hole in the piece of parchment that's underneath it and then create the impression of sort of tunneling down the rabbit hole.
So this is one piece that was slots back into this rig. The camera would have been mounted up here and looking directly down, and so as the replacement cards are added in, you just see the hole descend through the cobbled street.
So the point where we see the crystal clear water droplet fall down into the water well, then on it's a much more golden light, it's a much more crystal clear environment and a pure environment really.
The water droplet, the sort of pure droplet that the film speaks of, was created using replacements again. We actually tried several different substances to get the idea that the droplet itself also had some sort of texture to it, similar to the lightning bolt being made of tissue paper. So the actual method that we settled on was using epoxy resin and cling film that we basically shaped over replacement formers, and these formers were made out of just hot glue from a glue gun. Once the droplet has fallen down into the cavern, the idea is that it sort of brings to life the ingredients that then form the crop, that then forms the golden beer. The way this was represented was with a shimmering light effect that alludes to the idea that there's a huge abundance of this pure water underneath Pilsen. This is just a little moving gobo that we just knocked up really, just to get the water effect. The actual root growth, once we track away from the cavern and we start to creep back up to the surface of the earth, is what we're representing. There's no substitute for a Dremel to cutting through all that thickness of paper to actually create that root growth.
I mean, when you're using replacements, if the animation isn't working, you can step back and do another shot, because it's all still frames. But things like that, and the field shot as well, where you're cutting away the models on the field, you've got to get it right first time.
The actual growth of the field itself was started at the other end of the shot and then worked backwards, because we had to start with everything fully composed and then trim it all back to nothing.
Of course, the heartbreaking bit for the model maker is that at the end of it, they're just a pile of paper and wire bits, because everything's cut back throughout the whole animation process, so you're left with nothing. So this is one of the few surviving bits of barley.
The barrel took about a week to get absolutely right. We used traditional book paper to cover the barrel, so again it kind of gives that nice smooth sort of buff finish to it, but also it means when you punch light behind it, it creates the golden glow, which is what we wanted to emulate, being the golden beer. This we created using these electrical connectors, and they were just literally cable tied around there, colour coded for the different types of hops and barley. The barley stems would literally pop them in and then lock them up tight. That would sit underneath, and then everything would move up and down together.
No beer before had ever been that kind of clear and golden. It had always been dark, murky beers. And that was, that's the reason why there was a revolution in the first place, why all of this came about. And it was just that birth, I suppose, of when, that golden glow hit the world, the first golden beer.